Walked across scorching deserts and trudged through jungles buzzing with danger. He sailed treacherous seas patrolled by pirates who wouldn't hesitate to slit a traveler's throat for gold. He dined with kings and sultans, and stood before emperors in distant courts where few outsiders had ever been allowed. He escaped death more times than he could count, and yet, despite his extraordinary adventures, most of the world doesn't even know his name. Before Marco Polo became the poster child for exploration, before Columbus discovered lands already inhabited, before the word tourist was even a thought, there was a man named Ibn Battuta. A man whose sheer will and insatiable curiosity led him to travel farther than anyone else in pre-modern history. He journeyed over 75,000 miles, yes, 75,000, in an age where travel meant constant hardship, danger, and the very real possibility that you'd never return. Born in 1304 in Tangier, Morocco, Ibn Battuta wasn't born into royalty, wealth, or fame. He was trained in Islamic law, a quiet scholar at heart. At 21 years old, like many Muslims of his time, he set out to perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, a noble religious duty. That trip was supposed to take about a year. Instead, it became a 30-year odyssey across continents, cultures, and kingdoms. Picture this: no smartphones, no maps, no translation apps, no hotels, and definitely no GPS. The only compass guiding him was the position of the stars, his faith, and his endless hunger for knowledge. He crossed North Africa, winding through dusty caravan routes, dodging desert bandits, and navigating cities alive with culture. In Cairo, he marveled at the bustling streets and towering minarets, a city he would later call one of the most beautiful in the world. In Damascus, he studied under some of the greatest scholars of his time, adding to his already impressive knowledge of law and theology. And when he reached Mecca after months of exhausting travel, instead of feeling satisfied, he looked out over the holy city and thought, what else lies beyond? So he kept moving. He ventured east into Mesopotamia, Persia, and Anatolia. He wandered the ancient streets of Baghdad, a city still reeling from the Mongol invasion decades earlier. Imagine seeing one of the greatest centers of human civilization, now scarred by destruction, but still beating with trade and scholarship. For Ibn Battuta, every city was a lesson in resilience. But if he thought his travels had been dangerous so far, he was in for a shock when he entered India. His reputation as a scholar earned him an invitation to the court of Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq of Delhi, one of history's most brilliant yet unpredictable rulers. The Sultan was notorious for his bursts of generosity and equally infamous for his bouts of cruelty. He made Ibn Battuta a high-ranking judge, showering him with wealth and honor. But politics at the Delhi court were a dangerous game. Rumors of conspiracies swirled constantly, and Ibn Battuta himself narrowly escaped execution when palace intrigue turned deadly. It's amazing how close he came to losing it all. His luck, however, didn't run out. Instead, his travels took an even wilder turn. He was sent as an ambassador on a perilous mission to China. On the way, he sailed through pirate-infested seas and stopped at the Maldives, where he somehow became the chief judge of the islands and even married into the royal family. Quite the adventure, wouldn't you say? Life seemed perfect for a while, but Battuta wasn't one to settle. He soon left the islands behind, journeying to Sri Lanka, Sumatra, and finally China itself. His journey never ceased to amaze. In China, he was stunned by the empire's sophistication. He described bustling cities under Mongol rule, elaborate markets overflowing with silks and spices, and even noted strange customs and celebrations, including winter festivals where lakes froze over, a sight unimaginable to a man from North Africa. He marveled at China's paper money centuries before Europe would widely adopt the concept. These weren't just travel notes. They were windows into worlds that much of the Middle East and Europe had never even dreamed of. But travel wasn't just breathtaking scenery and exotic cultures. Ibn Battuta's journey was laced with mortal danger. He was robbed by bandits, caught in raging storms at sea, and even kidnapped and briefly enslaved during one disastrous stretch of his travels. He wrote of encounters with cannibal tribes in parts of Africa, detailed his narrow escape from a coup, and recounted traveling with caravans through territories where every shadow could mean death. Still, nothing, absolutely nothing, could stop him. After years in Asia, he turned his gaze to Africa, visiting East African cities like Mogadishu and Kilwa in modern-day Tanzania. He was awed by Kilwa's wealth, describing its palaces built of coral stone and its role in global trade, linking Arabia, India, and even China. Battuta's vivid accounts of these cities remain some of the earliest and most detailed records we have of their splendor. And finally, after nearly 3 decades of exploration, after countless miles of walking, sailing, and riding, Ibn Battuta returned home to Morocco. He was no longer a young man full of dreams. He was a hardened traveler who had seen almost every corner of the known world. But home wasn't what he remembered. His family had passed away, his friends had moved on, and the stories he carried back were so extraordinary that many didn't even believe him. But Ibn Battuta wasn't about to let his life's work vanish into obscurity. He partnered with a Moroccan scholar, Ibn Juzai, to dictate his adventures. The result was the Rihla, meaning the journey, a book that would become one of the most extraordinary travel chronicles in history. It wasn't just a dry log of locations, it was a treasure chest of stories, documenting cultures, customs, languages, and empires that have long since disappeared into history. Through his words, forgotten cities came back to life, forgotten kings spoke again, and places no one thought existed were proven real. And yet, for centuries, his legacy remained overshadowed. European explorers like Marco Polo became household names, their stories turned into myths of bravery and heroism. But here was a man who traveled farther than Marco Polo, who saw more, lived more, and wrote about a world far more connected than we ever imagined. Ibn Battuta wasn't just a traveler, he was a scholar, a diplomat, a judge, a cultural bridge. His journeys connected the Islamic world from the Atlantic coast of Africa to the South China Sea. He reminded us that history wasn't shaped only by kings and wars, but also by explorers who dared to dream beyond the edge of the map. His own words captured his spirit best. Traveling, it leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller. And that's exactly what he became, a storyteller whose words continue to inspire curiosity centuries later. So why isn't Ibn Battuta as famous as Marco Polo or Columbus? Some argue it's because his writings weren't widely translated in Europe until much later. Others say it's because the world has a habit of celebrating Western explorers while overlooking others. Whatever the reason, Battuta's story is proof that adventure knows no borders. Today, his name lives on in the Rihla and in monuments across Morocco, but honestly, his greatest monument is the roadmap he left behind, a map of curiosity, courage, and relentless drive to see the world. Imagine walking in his footsteps, standing in the mosques of Damascus he once prayed in, the palaces of Delhi he once feared, or the bustling Chinese ports where he marveled at paper money for the first time. Imagine retracing the journey of a man who turned the entire known world into his classroom. So if this incredible journey amazed you, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold history stories, and tell us in the comments, if you could walk just one path Ibn Battuta traveled, where would you go? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop being curious.